Hello internet, and today's video is going to be another book opinion. Those videos in which I tell you my opinion on a book, and today's book is going to be The Girl at Midnight by Melissa Gray. This is the first in a trilogy. So the basic plot of this is that we live in a sort of contemporary society. This is an urban fantasy. There are two species that have been at war for a really long time. An avian species that are bird-like. They have feathers. They're very humanoid, but they have feathers and they have features of specific birds. And then a Dracorian type species that are distantly related from dragons, and they have scales that are as plentiful as a redhead does freckles. So these two species are constantly at war. They have been at war for years, for eons, for millennia, just constantly at war. And there are particular people in both sides that want this war to stop. However, the only way to stop this war is through the use of this thing called the Firebird. It's some sort of special entity, and it's supposed to be allowed to give power to whoever possesses it, and this power can help stop this war between these two people. It's a very interesting war to look at because it's one of those where these people have no idea why they hate each other. They just do, and they've been wrecking each other for years and years. They're currently sort of at a stalemate, and they're not going into battles as often, and we're continuing within this war when it starts to get really dark once again. Now we follow a human girl named Echo, and she came across the avians at a very young age. She ended up being fostered by this very prominent woman who is in the Avian Council, and she has grown up in this world knowing about the Dracorians and about the avians and about this war going on. She figures out from her mentor that there is this thing called the Firebird, and her mentor sends her out on a mission to try to figure out more information about this Firebird so that they can potentially figure out a peaceful way to end the war. However, this all has to be kept on the down low because there of course are other people who have different ideas about how the best way to end the war is. Then we also meet a Dracorian prince. He is the dragon prince. I can't remember his name at this time, but he is also looking for this Firebird because he no longer wants this war to go on. He is over with it. He's done with it. He's like, I don't know why my people have to continue suffering. We are over. So this whole book is a quest of this girl and her meeting up with the Dragon Prince and a couple other characters, and them going forth and trying to find a way to find this Firebird and just figure out a way to potentially get this Firebird and help resolve the issues of the war. That is their hope. They're hoping for a world where their two people aren't fighting. What I love best about this book is the characters, and a lot of times I see when there are like two warring factions, we're going to see meshings of at least one group, of a group made up of those two warring factions, and these characters sometimes like get over all their problems super easy, and then we see all this romance. While we're going to see romance between these two warring factions in this little group of Echoes, I liked how the characters still held an animosity towards the opposing side. While they strive to try to work together, they definitely had some issues. There is a Dracorian warrior who is in love with his prince, and he ends up having to deal with all of these avians that are in Echo's team because he decides to support his prince when some shenanigans go down in the Dracorian kingdom. Now with him, we see that he is really like hateful towards avians. He doesn't like them because they hurt him really bad, but he's striving to at least get along, and we can see how he is trying to battle with that bias, with that hatred in his heart, and he's trying to care about his new friends and get along with these people on his new team. So I like how in this book, even though these people come together as a team, their animosities against each other aren't just like clicked away, they're not gone. We see them struggle with these frustrations, we see them struggle with this thing that has been ingrained in them to hate each other, and we see them grow slowly past that to try to trust their supposed enemy. So I definitely love that because it's just more realistic, okay? It's more realistic. If you have been ingrained all of your life to hate this this person, then not all of a sudden you're just going to be like, well, they're my friend, when all of your life you've been hearing demon stories about how they're all going to come and murder you. Like, it doesn't happen that quickly. So I like seeing the slow progression in this team of them trying to figure out how to work together and get over those past animosities. In this book, there is no specific bad guy, and I kind of like that about this series. There's no like evil end all be all bad guy. We have a lot of characters that we probably don't root for because they're getting in the way of Team Echo, but there is no strict bad guy, because you realize that the people who are bad, they come from both sides. There's a character on the avian side and there's a character on the Dracoran side, and they're very, very similar, but we realize that they're not necessarily evil. They're just looking out for the best interest of their people in the best way that they can, which is basically annihilate the other side. These two are just so embedded in the war that they cannot hope for a peace between their two species, because they've just been so set that the only way to survive is to get rid of one or die off yourself. So I liked how in this book there is no specific evil other than the evils of war, and how we get to see the complexities of these characters and them just striving to do the best for their people. And so sometimes you really need to think of peace, but in wartime, there are going to be a lot of people in charge who are not going to care about peace talks. They're going to care about winning and surviving. So this quest here is not like a grand, amazing quest. We're slowly trying to discover clues that will lead us to the Firebird. It is a very slow burn kind of quest. I do think it's interesting. I think this book is mainly held up by the war efforts between these two people and the desperation of Echo and her team to try to find a way to end this war before these two factions end up destroying each other and themselves. So this quest isn't very fantastical, isn't like this end all be all amazing kind of hero journey quest. It is a trail of clues that are supposed to lead them to an end conclusion of how to figure out a way to try to dampen down the hatred and split apart these two factions so they stop fighting. So if you're looking at this book because you want this fantastical quest, you're not really going to get it, but you are going to get a story about how two factions are divided by this war, how they've been enemies, and this one group who is going to try to find different clues and different ways to get along with each other so that they can potentially lead the way to a new era of peace between these two peoples. I really like the premise of this book. I like the idea of these two warring factions. I like that there was no like end all be all for evil, that the evil of this book was this war. I liked how it was mentioned like these people don't even know how they are fighting at or why they are fighting at the end of the day. They just know it's been instilled in them to hate each other, and how damaging that can be when we do that. I like seeing the desperation of Echo and her team and their tiredness and them just wanting to figure out a way to save their people so that they would stop fighting, so that there can be some peace and they don't have to watch their friends die. I especially like the ending of this book. I like the discovery of the Firebird and how it was little clues set up. I definitely want to see more about the Firebird in later books, and I have read the second book while reviewing this. I haven't finished it, but I have read the second book, so I'm happy to say this does continue along the path of us figuring out a little bit more about this Firebird, about the war, about like all of these things that are kind of splitting these two peoples apart. So I think this is a good thing if you're into urban fantasy. I'm not quite sure about like the action entertainment factor, but it does have a lot of good discussions of how these characters are going to try to get along and work together even though they've been told all their lives that they're supposed to be enemies of each other. So for that, I like the series. Plus, it's a really pretty book, so like that doesn't hurt its case at all. If you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue seeing more, click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, internet.